The Liberal government's proposed changes to Ottawa's asylum laws have refugee advocates concerned. But what do the changes actually mean, and how will it affect those looking for protected status? Joining me now from Kingston, Ontario with more is Professor of Law at Queen's University, Sherry Aiken. Professor Aiken, thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning, Ben.
Okay, so currently, under Canada's Safe Third Country Agreement, would-be refugees who claim asylum at an official port of entry are turned away if they've already filed a claim in the U.S. So according to StatsCan, that's led to more than 38,000 people crossing the border outside of official points of entry to avoid that automatic rejection. What laws specifically are the Liberals trying to change?
Well, they're trying to make it impossible for anyone who's initiated a refugee claim in the U.S., whether they've had a hearing or not, whether they've had a decision or not, to simply not access Canada's refugee determination system. This new proposal applies not just to refugees coming from the United States, but also a few other countries with whom Canada has information sharing agreements. So that includes the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, though it's very clear it's targeting the asylum seekers from the United States.
Well, Border Security Minister Bill Blair says the changes are aimed at stopping what he's calling asylum shoppers. So what does he mean by that? And, you know, at first blush, it seems like, all right, well, there's a problem and this looks like a solution. So what's the issue?
Well, it's actually not an issue of asylum shopping. There's no evidence that the flow of refugees coming from the United States are people who've actually initiated claims there. Some of them certainly. But what's really going on is that people are leaving the United States because they fear they won't have a fair shake in the United States asylum system ever since President Trump assumed office. I mean, we didn't have these flows. We didn't have these spikes prior to President Trump's administration. And, you know, in my view, what's happening is people are quite rationally deciding that they're not going to get a fair shake in the United States, and they prefer to come to Canada for that reason. It's also the case that a huge population of Haitians who enjoyed temporary protected status in the United States in the wake of the earthquake there some 9 years ago are facing the imminent end of that status and the prospect of returning to a country they haven't been to in years, and certainly the prospect of return that's not safe at the current time. And so, in fact, a very significant percentage of the people coming across the border from the United States right now are Haitians.
Now, so you've mentioned you've got some concerns with the proposed changes, including the fact that they were tucked into an omnibus budget bill. And you've also argued that Canada should just suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement instead. Why do you believe that it would be better to go that way?
Because right now, we're actually incentivizing people to become irregular migrants in the sense that they don't approach a port of entry where the migration system is set up to handle them. They're encouraged to cross the border outside a port of entry, in this case primarily at Roxham Road in Quebec, as you know, because the Safe Third Country Agreement doesn't apply there. So it's actually creating this perverse incentive, better in my view, to suspend the agreement entirely and encourage people to simply show up at a regular border point and be processed where we have the resources to do it. And the reason I think the agreement needs to be suspended right now is that, quite frankly, America's asylum system simply does not meet international standards. It's not a question of it not being a perfect system. It's that it fails to meet international standards, and that's the part of the story that's not getting the attention it deserves right now. So we're actually sending people to a situation where they're not being treated according to the standards of the 1951 Refugee Convention, and that's a problem. And so what Canada is actually proposing to do right now is saying, well, we're going to bar you from our refugee determination system. We will allow you to access a much more inferior administrative review, which doesn't guarantee you an oral hearing, and does carry with it the prospect of removal to a country where they're at risk.